welcome and thank you for joining us today with the Organization of Independent Filmmakers workshop series. Today we have a very special guest. I kind of saw her things online and took a stab and reached out to her. I just thought this would be such an amazing topic. So we have Joanne Butcher with us today. She is a film producer, filmmaker coach, and creator of the Filmmaker Success Program. She's been a global marketing consultant for YouTube in the past and has worked with hundreds of filmmakers to help teach them what they need to know to help them get their films produced, funded, and distributed. So we're very lucky to have her with us. And so I want to introduce to you all Joanne Butcher.
Hi, everybody. So great to see you all from all over. And thank you, Danielle, for inviting me. It's so great to learn about new film organizations.
Engine 424 and paramedic 434. Difficulty.
Make sure you're muted if you're not speaking. Thanks.
And find out, what it is that the organizations do for filmmakers and all what support you're getting, because we need a lot of support as filmmakers. We need a lot of support. So it's great to find out. And also, whenever I find out about a film organization or a film event or a film education program, I also, send my clients and say, this is the place to go. This is the place not to go. This is the place to go, So I really love that. So thank you, Danielle, for the introduction. I think that in my bones, I'm a producer, and I have a particular way that I think of what a producer is. And the way that I think of a producer is the most creative role in a film project. And I think for most filmmakers, that is not how they see producing. But this is the example that I'll give you. So David O. Selznick was the producer of Gone with the Wind. And he started out by getting the rights to Gone with the Wind, which was one of the most successful books of its time. A huge bestseller. And he knew from the beginning that his leading man was Clark Gable, but he didn't have a leading lady. So he spent an entire year auditioning every single actress in the country and could not find his Scarlett O'Hara until one day Laurence Olivier walked in with a very, very young Vivien Leigh on his arm, and he found his Scarlett O'Hara, but he took a year looking for the right person for Scarlett O'Hara. Why he thought he should pick an English actress, I really don't know, but he was David O. Selznick. And then when they went into production, he had a director, and during production, he fired that director. And eventually fired the second director, and the third director is the one that actually got the credit, Victor Fleming. And Gone with the Wind is still one of the most high-earning films of all time. But so the way that I see a producer is the one who has the vision and then who actually implements that vision. Often that includes getting the money to implement that vision, hiring people, bringing talent, all of that. That's the producer, but it's the producer who's the one with the vision. I think usually, like a lot of my clients are writer-directors, and so writer-directors think that they are the one with the vision. And so, but the producer, in a lot of cases, when you're making your first feature or even your first shorts, you're the producer as well. The reason you're the producer is because you're the one with the vision. You're the one with the vision. You're the one who's going to have the oomph to get that film made. And I think a lot of times filmmakers think, oh, I'm going to find a producer and they're going to handle all the business, because that's not the creative stuff. But I think it's better to actually think of it all as being the creative work. So that's sort of part of the way that I see things. I When I worked back at YouTube, that was really the favorite job that I ever had. And I got to sit at home. This was like pre-COVID, before we all knew about remote work. And I used to sit around all day at home and research movies, and then create all kinds of content around movies. And it was just super, super fun. But most of the time, I was actually writing and producing myself. But after the YouTube years, I became ill, and I became so ill that I didn't work for 7 years, and I lost everything. And during those 7 years that I was laying in bed, kind of just watching life go by, other people got married or changed jobs or moved or whatever. I was just laying in bed, and I had left film, and I had decided that it was time for me to get a real job. And so those 7 years I lay in bed, I would often, like talk to God, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm sure there's some lesson for me in all of this, but could you just tell me what it is? Because if you could tell me what the lesson is, I'll get out of bed, and whatever it is you want me to do, just tell me, and I'll do it. And during those 7 years, there were a couple of times where I actually got an answer. And the answer was, work with filmmakers. And I was like, yeah, not that, because I've already done that. I already ran a cinema. I already ran a film school. I already did all that stuff, and it didn't work. So, anything but that. So I look back at it now, and I feel as though, well, frankly, I chose to lay in bed for 7 years rather than do what I was supposed to be doing. That's really what I think now. But I had migraines, and I still get migraines, but I don't have migraines every day. And so finally, I accepted what it is that I believe I was put on the planet to do, which is to help filmmakers become producers, to help filmmakers raise the money that they need to make their films, and stop waiting for other people to take the lead, or stop waiting for other people to show up with the money, because I just don't believe in it. I'm just not really into waiting around for other people. And I think that in recent years, right before my mother died, she told me a story that when she and my father first got married, they were in London in the 50s. And when she and my father first got married, she went and found a place for them to live, a flat, as we call it in England, an apartment. She found a flat for them. And the lady said, okay, my husband will come back with the deposit or with the rent or whatever. So my father showed up, and my father is black. And there was no room available when he arrived. So my father went to his friends and borrowed some money and put a deposit down on a house. And when I heard that story, I was like, oh, that's where I get it from. I'm just not really interested in people saying no, or putting up a wall, or putting up a barrier or something like that. I'm like, well, there's got to be some other way, So I think that's partly where it comes from, but I feel as though, in fact, I was just talking to a filmmaker today who's been very successful with his short films. And he managed to get representation. He's getting to pitch at all kinds of fabulous places, getting nothing but no's, And I said to him, really, my strategy would be, you've got to make a movie. You've got to make a feature film, because otherwise, one, you're going to keep pitching and pitching and pitching, and they're going to keep saying no, and you're going to become depressed and demoralized, and you're going to end up spending 7 years in bed like me. Or you make a film And in the meantime, those people you're pitching to are going to be watching and be like, oh, look, this guy's moving forward. He's making his first feature film and he's just getting on with it. And then eventually it'll all sync up. But if you don't move forward with your career, then you're still going to be the same person pitching the same thing a year from now, and you're going to get the same no's a year from now, 2 years from now. I even met somebody who works at one of the top film schools who's been pitching a film for 20 years. I'm sorry. It's not me. I just don't see how that could possibly be fulfilling. So, about a year ago, I'm a coach. I'm very proud of being a coach, and I call myself that so that I'm a little separate from the way the industry works. And I have business coaches, and so I was in a room with this coach, and she said, a few years ago, I could only have like 10 clients at a time or something, and until I sort of figured out, what my methodology was. And I went, I said, I work with 10 or 12 clients at a time, and but I don't think I have a methodology. And she said, how about this? How about you think about this? Think about, there is a method. You don't know what it is yet today, but you will know what it is, and just go with that. And I said, oh, okay. And over the next month or so, I figured out this methodology, and I now call it the Film Box Office Success Formula. And I call it that because I know that you all are creatives. You write, you direct, all the creative stuff, and you're obsessed with it, and that's great. And I'm always thinking about business, and I'm always thinking about money. And so I put box office first because ultimately that's where your film is going to end up, And I used to run a film school. I used to run a cinema. It was a first run cinema. We turned in the box office numbers at the end of the week, just like the movies today where you read about, what was the last one I read? Top Gun just made however much money it made. But anyway, the reason we know those numbers is because the cinemas that have our first run and are showing the movies when they first come out are turning in those numbers. So we were a one screen first run cinema. And that meant that I dealt with all of the distributors, or all the more independent distributors, I guess. Like, I never showed a Disney film, say, but I dealt with all those distributors. I dealt with the press. We did our marketing. We sold tickets. And the only way that our bills got paid was if I sold those tickets. And so when I started coaching, I realized that most filmmakers are sort of on the creative side and in the nonprofit world where most of the education happens, but they're not really connected to that business side, which is where we were when we ran a cinema. We ran a cinema, we were in exhibition, we were in distribution, we were in marketing, and we were in ticket sales. The official term in the industry for that is butts in seats, So I realized, well, I was a writer, I was a filmmaker, I was an artist, I was a creative, whatever. What if I could connect those things for filmmakers? What if I could have it that when you start your film, what if you're writing your script, that you're also thinking about, how am I going to get butts in seats? I'm not saying necessarily that you do all of that thinking at the same time. I think it's probably easier to do the creative on one side and then the business and the left brain separately. But for a filmmaker to see a connection between, this is my work, this is my art, and one day somebody's going to be buying a ticket. And it may not be a physical ticket to go to a cinema today. It may be renting something online. I went to see Everything Everywhere All at Once at the theater again, because I knew it was leaving the big theater. And then the next day I saw them advertising it on my Dish Network TV, right? That's TVOD, transactional video on demand. So now you can buy a ticket on your TV to see, depending on if you're Dish or Comcast, whatever it is, you can buy a ticket to see Everything Everywhere All at Once. Then eventually it will move to SVOD, subscription on demand, like Netflix, Showtime, so on, BET, and then it'll move to AVOD, advertising on demand, but that'll be probably years down the road. So I figure if I can get filmmakers to think, this is my script, but one day there's going to be somebody buying a ticket, that it'll help that path, which often filmmakers are not thinking about. They're thinking, I want to tell my story, and they're not thinking about the audience at the end of it. So I came up with this system. It has 7 steps. It spells the word success. And I'm going to go through those 7 steps this evening. And we're going to have questions, and you can raise your hand. I like it if you raise your hand on video so I can see you. But if you have questions, or if you want to wait till the end, we can do that as well. But I'm just going to run through my system. That is the methodology that I use with my clients to make sure that their films actually make money. And I know this may sound strange, but as far as I can tell, most filmmakers are not thinking about money when they're making their films. But before I start, I would like to ask you, so I call my business Filmmaker Success. We're looking at the word success. I wonder if some of you would mind sharing before we start, what is your definition of success for you as a filmmaker? And you could be thinking about this in your career, or you could be thinking about this in your next film. Like, what's success for your next film? Or what's success in your career? How do you think about that? What would success look like for you? Would anybody be willing to share? Robin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. Success for me would be able to continue to make movies. So the only way I can continue to make movies is if I make a successful movie that in turn brings me money to where I can take it and use it and make more movies, because that's really all I want to do.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, make more movies. And I recently started working with a new client, and when I met him, he was introduced to me by a friend, and he said to me, well, I got investors for my first 2 films. And I said, you did? Did you get them their money back? And he said, no. Like, it had not crossed his mind. It had not crossed his mind. And I said, okay, are they still speaking to you? He said, maybe. And I said, okay, well, why don't you go and tell them you have somebody that you're going to work with who's going to make sure that on the next film, it's going to make money. And so he did that, and he got $100,000 investment to start the raising the money for his next film. But it literally had not crossed his mind before. But to me, like, what is the definition of the word investor? Anybody else? Who else? What's your definition of success? Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. My definition would be a happy customer. So when somebody comes and they ask me to help out on their film, and I work on both sides of the camera, so it could be in many aspects, but after it's over and done with, when they smile and say, wow, this is done, this is exactly what I wanted, to me, that gives me that gratification to know that the next film that, I want to make somebody else happy as well.
So when you say customer, who is your customer?
Just the person who's asking to help with the film. It could be a director, it could be a casting director, could be another producer. I get a lot, since I know a lot of people, I have a lot of connections. A lot of people they basically just call because I have so many friends in the business. They call me, hey, I need this, can you help? So it's almost like I'm a go-to person.
Does can you help mean we're paying you?
Sometimes, and sometimes they know that I love the humanitarian projects. So a lot of times I'll get, hey, look, I'm doing this project. Can you help? And I don't mind doing it because I love the craft, but I also work a full-time job. So it's not my bread and butter to where I feel that pressure to make money, but we all do want to make money.
Yes, and I want to see the money go to the humanitarian projects in particular.
Yes.
Yes, yes, that's awesome. Thank you. Who else?
I'll go.
Alice, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually a little bit more on your side, Joanne, where I'm much newer to filmmaking, but have over 30 years in business, and business is my prime bread and butter. And I make a lot of money for a lot of other people. And but I have been using some pretty big successful film use cases from going back all the way to Blair Witch Project as my inspiration all these years, knowing that when I had the chance to do something that my product or projects would be based basically in business, and I would be presenting a marketable package, IP package to people. And we are working on that. I have filmed and written an entire TV first season of a horror TV television series.
Let me interrupt you, Alice. What would success look like for you?
Well, success right now is we have filmed the TV pilot ourselves, and we have a complete package with artwork. We have our own band.
So
We
what
have
would
songs that are
success-
already
What
streaming.
would
And
success
so
look like?
success is
I'm nailing you
us.
to the floor.
Yep, success is us getting it in front of the networks that we have targeted, because we've done a lot of work in
So if I
finding
could
the
just
right
make a little
network to target.
adjustment here. Success for me would be getting it made.
Getting what made the TV series?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Success is it's sold and our series being made.
Yes. All right. So getting it in
Yep.
front of now that we're in development hell, but getting it made so that we can all see it and enjoy it.
Yep.
That's the success, right?
Yep. When we have our Funko Pops and our stocks with our characters on them being sold by Target, and people are talking about us like they talk about Stranger Things, that is our success.
Great.
And that's what we are working towards.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I'm gonna start on my my little road here, and we'll also leave time at the end for questions. So the first letter in success is S. And everybody knows what is the first thing that you need to make a film, or what is the most important thing that you need a film that begins with S? Anybody?
Script.
Script, yes, yes.
Script, story.
A script or story, yes. So my little adjustment to this is a marketable script. And what is the difference between a script and a marketable script? A few years ago, and I'm not going to say the name of the film because I'm going to say some mean things about it. But anyway, a filmmaker I knew had managed to raise $250,000, I think, to make his first feature. It was a comedy set in San Francisco. Everything about the film was good. The directing was good. The acting was good. The production values were fantastic. Music was great. The cinematography was to die good. And the film was about a young man who wanted to become a professional comic, but never actually did comedy. He just dreamed about doing comedy. and instead sat at home and masturbated a lot. And I went to the premiere of the film, and there is no way I would ever have made it through that movie if I hadn't been sitting in the premiere with the director, with all the actors, with the lead actor, who was rather shocked to find how much in the film was about masturbation, which he, I think, didn't remember. There was so much. And the film was completely unwatchable. Completely unwatchable. There wasn't really a story. The character didn't grow and develop in any kind of interesting way. He never actually got on a stage, for example. And the film never sold, never got distribution. It's completely unwatchable. And I've seen that kind of thing so many times. But there are, even if, and there were no names in the film, there was nobody famous in the film. So for a no-name project, does anybody know any genres that we know are popular and likely to sell, even if you don't have celebrity talent, A-list talent in the
Horror.
Horror.
Okay, great. So most filmmakers know that horror is a genre that sells, but there are other genres that sell. Okay, so thrillers, that's my favorite
Fantasy.
genre. What did he say? What did you say, Minga?
I said fantasy or supernatural. That's my favorite.
Fantasy or supernatural? Well, it does sell, but if you don't have enough budget for names, then you probably can't make supernatural or fantasy. Unless you're British, in which case you probably can make low budget sci-fi. But Americans like big budget sci-fi. I would say, I don't know, did you ever see the movie The Lobster? It's a story about a place in the future where if you don't find a partner, a mate, within 3 months in this kind of rehab facility, you get turned into the animal of your choice. And our hero's animal is a lobster. Okay? All I can say is there are no lobsters in that film. It's a piece of genius film work. It's absolutely brilliant, but there are no lobsters because the British are that cheap. They are that cheap. And Americans...
That is hysterical.
Anyway, so supernatural and horror horror is a great choice. Supernatural and fantasy tends to be too big budget for maybe your first feature. Action films, same thing. It's hard to do action if you really don't have money, but you can do horror with very little money. You can do a thriller, which is not that different from a horror. A horror tends to have supernatural elements. A thriller tends to be more about crime and reality and things like that. As I said, that's my favorite genre. I'm into anything to do with crimes and bad guys and good guys and all that stuff. Another one is faith-based films. And by that we mean Christian films. So although I think that's changing a little bit, I think that there's actually more openness to other faiths or other types of spirituality, but faith-based films, there's a huge market for faith-based films and not enough content. The fourth one is family films, and family films in the industry means films for children. It doesn't mean films about families, it means films for children. Okay, so the lead character is going to be under 12 and it's going to be about kids. So if one of you said to me, oh, I have a movie about a girl and her dog and the dog gets lost and then she has to go on an adventure to find her dog, that is going to get distribution like that. I work very closely with a distribution company and he knows all my clients' films as they're coming along, right? But every now and then he will completely forget himself and he will call me and say, Joanne, do you have any family films? Because there is such a lack of family content out there. The only films are, big budget, Pixar, Disney, animation, live action films. There's hardly anything. And then if the film has diversity in it, it's even more that there's nothing out there. So if any of you are interested in any of those genres, just think about it, because I can tell you that film is sold before you've even written the script. And then the fifth genre I would talk about is documentary films. So for example, I have a client who made a film about basically her growing up in the Grateful Dead community. She's a deadhead. And so, there are millions of deadheads out there. So there's a built-in audience for the film before you even start, So documentaries tend to, work like that. So, so now I'm not saying that you have to make one of those genres, but what I am saying is that a lot of filmmakers think, oh, I'm making a feature film, I'm making my first feature, I want my story to be, I have an actual example. A woman came to me and she said, oh, I just got a distribution contract for this film. And I looked at her for her and I said, I would suggest that you absolutely do not sign this contract. But I said, send me the trailer of the film, and I sent it to my distributor. He said, immediately, I want it. And it was a film about black high school, and the kids, there was the lead character was desperate to get out of this very poor neighborhood where this school was, and she was on her way to college. But there were these like mean girls in the class who were bullying her. And eventually the bullying escalates in the film to the point where they basically rat her out to the local drug dealer and she gets kidnapped. What genre is that film? Getty.
I mean, I would say thriller.
Okay, well, which
Action.
one is it? Which one is it?
Probably more thriller.
So she thought it was a drama, but what I would say is a low budget, no name drama, we can't sell it. A low budget, no name thriller, we can sell that. And that's the difference. Same exact film, but most filmmakers would look at that and say, oh, that's a drama. But bullying is already getting into thriller territory. Kidnapping and drug dealers is absolutely thriller territory. When somebody's life is at stake, that's a thriller. That's the definition of a thriller. So the story, even if I had worked with her before she made the film, I would have tweaked her thriller elements a little tiny bit, probably put something in the opening scene to suggest that it's a thriller. That would have been all the changes we needed to make sure that film was easily sold. And so the story is the same story, but filmmakers think it's a drama. Can't sell a drama. It's a thriller, we can sell it. And so when I talk about a marketable script, I'm not necessarily even saying a script that's a different story than the story that you want to tell. But once you know that there are genres that will sell, and maybe you can make a little change here, a little change there. If you are somebody who says, I work in comedy, I only do comedy, that's all I do, then you could decide, well, I'll do something that's a family comedy, or you have to go to a next budget level where you can actually get names in your film. As far as I'm concerned, there's always a way to have your film be successful and sell, but one business model doesn't work for everything. So when I talk about these genres that sell, I'm talking about micro budget films, no names, and they will still sell in the marketplace. As soon as you can raise more money and get, celebrity names in your film, it doesn't matter anymore. But that's a different business model. Okay, that's always the term I use, is business model. So one of the problems that I find in the film world is that there's never, when people talk about the business of film, they don't make a differentiation between these things. Are we talking about micro budget? Are we talking about celebrity talent or what? So the U in success stands for understand the business model. I was at AFM one year and somebody raised his hand and he said, well, I spent $2 million on my film and it didn't make any money. And I instantly knew that he had the wrong business model. I know he did not have names in his film. Because if he had had names, he wouldn't have said, I spent $2 million. He would have said, I made a film with so and so and so and so. Because once you move to a budget level where you have name talent in your films, that's how you're selling your films. You're no longer selling it as a comedy or a this or a that. You're selling it on the names. I like the example of, I think one of the worst named films in history is Michael Clayton. Has anybody seen Michael Clayton? It's a great film, great film. But the truth is it doesn't, they can have a stupid title for a film because it's got George Clooney in it. So once you say, oh, it's a movie with George Clooney, then people go watch the film because it has George Clooney in it. So to me, when I say understand the business model, there's always a business model that works, but if you choose the wrong business model, you end up losing money. I have a client who, and this is definitely before she came to work with me, because I would never have allowed her to do this. She took her entire life savings and made a film for $500,000. It's a really good film. Very good film. I'm not going to tell you the name of it. But anyway, it's a really good film. And she's done very well with that film. Has no names in it. Guess how much money she has made with the film? Anybody take a guess?
100,000.
100,000. She's actually made $150,000.
Nice.
Nice. Well, it would have been fabulous if she had spent $100,000 to make it, but she spent $500,000 to make it. So if she had been working with me, I would never let somebody make a film for $500,000 with no names in it. $500,000, you can afford some names.
Mm-hmm. Minga has a question. Minga, you want to unmute, ask your question?
Sure. Did I do it? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, before you move forward, I was just wondering, like, what's considered a micro budget? Because I'm from like indie no budget. So micro budget to me is like what I've been doing with my last few films. But what would you consider like, like, oh, if you're just starting out and you want to make something decent and you can't get names in it, what would be like the minimum that you would suggest for like, like the thriller that you were talking about, or maybe a family or horror movie?
Are we talking about features? Because I just want to be clear, I'm talking about features here.
Usually I gravitate towards series and things, but yeah, for this question, let's consider it like as a feature.
Okay, so a feature, micro budget feature, I consider under $100,000.
Okay.
And I think of 40,000 as being the minimum.
Okay.
That's how I work with my clients. We raise a minimum, and usually my clients can end up raising more than that, but that's kind of the minimum. I think I've certainly heard of people making feature films for less money than that.
Right.
But I think to get the production values that you need to get distribution, which is what I think of as the bottom line, getting distribution, I think $50,000 is the minimum. I have had somebody make a film for $23,000 and get distribution, but he was cheating because he and his production partner can do all post themselves.
Oh yeah, right? That's a blessing.
So they raised $23,000, and but most filmmakers are going to have other people do something. So I use 40 as the minimum.
Okay.
But these are all just we'll give you an idea.
Yeah.
But
And I did have another question. You might actually get to it, but how do you find these people to pitch to? Like, I found that my hardest thing as a filmmaker is the marketing and, trying to get views. It feels like nowadays people want you to come as the full package. They want you to already have like all these followers and fans already and things like that. And like Danielle knows, we were working on my sci-fi series. I was just
I'm
floored
going
and
to
just
interrupt
confused.
you, Minga,
Yeah.
because I'm going through my process. You will
Mm-hmm.
not hear me talk about pitching.
Oh, okay, okay.
um, because I'm, I'm not really into it. I'm into making movies.
Well, I mean, in general, like, how do you just find people to say, hey, I have this film? They're not just out there. At least I couldn't, like, I don't have access. Is there like websites out there, or do you have to find like a manager that or agent that shops your script out and things like that?
I don't do it.
Okay.
I don't do it. I could talk. I could come another night and talk about pitching, but that's not what I'm talking about tonight. I'm
Oh,
talking
no,
about
no problem.
making our own films and not getting into pitching. Right? I'm
Okay.
just sidestepping that altogether. So once you understand the business model, then, for example, my client with the $500,000, we would have made a $500,000 film that made a million, say, instead of spending 500,000 to make 150,000. So there's always a business model that works, but what a lot of filmmakers do is they make their, especially their first features, or the one I said had investors to make two features, but never made any money back because they haven't actually set up a business model that's going to work. So that's really, to me, a very, very important step. So the first C in success stands for calculate the value of your film. And so a lot of times filmmakers will say, well, you can't calculate the value of a film. But I knew when I saw that client's film, I knew that it was worth $100,000 to $150,000. If a film is well made and it has no names in it, it's worth about something between $50,000 and $150,000. Danielle guessed 100. This one has done quite well. It's really quite a nice film, but unless it does something special, unless it gets into Sundance or something, it's going to be worth something between 50 and 100, $120,000. Okay, so there's always anomalies, but again, I don't like to talk about anomalies. I like to talk about what the general thing is, you know. So that's why the 500,000 did not match, right? It wasn't the right business model because she had not calculated the value of her film before she decided how to spend her money, and she spent the money in the wrong way. She spent the money on production instead of on names. The second C is for create a distribution plan. So a lot of times what I see is that filmmakers make a film and then they think, oh, now where do I get distribution? Instead of, well, the way that I work is we already know we have distribution before we start because we're already working in a business model that's going to work. If I have celebrity names in my film, all the distribution companies are going to be interested. If I don't have names, then I have to be working in a genre that sells. Or I have a client right now, she's making a film for under $100,000. It's a comedy, it's not a genre that sells. And so we have to take that into account as we're making the film. And she's already got grants, she's already raising money from people. So she's going to raise all the money first, and she's not going to be out of pocket by the time the film comes to distribution, right? She's raising all the money first. One of the things I'm super proud of is none of my clients are in debt to anyone when their films go into distribution. Not one of them. And not to themselves either. Because I think that we should be, earning money, not spending money on our films. So that's kind of one of my bottom lines. So distribution is really the goal, and getting distribution means I'm going to be earning money on my film. So the next letter, E, and I always used to be I never wanted to use the word easy and fundraising in the same sentence, but now I say we're going to create the easiest fundraising plan for you. So, for example, my clients who start with me and make their first short film, or their first short film that they're going to fundraise for, I give them basically two choices. You can either raise $11,000 or $12,000. And that's what we raise to make a short film. And when you're very early in your career and you don't have a body of work, and you're making a short film and it's your first, or you're very new, then there are not that many ways of fundraising that are open to you. I teach 7 different ways of fundraising, and I have clients who I have my most advanced client. We're raising $1.2 million for a documentary, and then we're raising another 1.5 for another thing. But all the 7 ways of fundraising are open to him. He's 20 years into his career. He has a big professorship at a big school. He's got 8 feature films under his belt, a series, He's a very, very good fundraiser and has been fundraising for years. So over time in your career, not only do you have more films under your belt, but you have access to more ways of fundraising. Nilda, is that your name, Nilda?
Yes, hi. Great. This is some great information, Joanne. Thank you so much. And I wanted to find out, I know we're on the letter E, we're almost done with the success word. And I know you said the easiest fundraising plans. I know there's 7 ways. Can you touch on how we do, or how can we run these fundraisers? Can you touch on those and how we can run, or what are the ways that we can raise these funds?
So thank you for the questions. The 7 different ways of fundraising. The most money that is raised or is given any year is by individuals. I just saw today, maybe you saw on the news, the 2-year-old or 5-year-old boy who was under his parents who were killed at the July 4th shooting. There's a Gofundme campaign. This morning it was nearly 2 million. Now it's 2.5 million. That's individuals giving money. And the most amount of money given on any given year is by individuals. And I divide individuals into 2 types: small donors and major donors. In the fundraising world, we call it major donors. And so small donors tend to be in crowdfunding campaigns today, and major donors are people who give at higher numbers. So for somebody early in their career, a major donor might give $500, whereas for my most advanced client, a major donor is giving, 25,000 or those kind of numbers. So as you move along in your career, you increase your capacity, it's called in the fundraising world. I spent a long time in the fundraising world. You increase your fundraising capacity over time and as your body of work grows. So the first 2 types of fundraising are small donors, major donors, grants, foundations, corporate sponsors, there's one more that I'm forgetting, and sales. There's one more that I'm forgetting. I don't have the 7 in my head.
Baking?
What?
Baking?
Did you say baking? I'm not hearing
Begging, like a dog.
Begging?
Begging.
Begging. I'm so sorry, I can't hear the word that you're saying. So But fundraising is it's not rocket science. It's more a kind of rinse and repeat type of thing. So, for example, another client of mine who's a more experienced filmmaker has a list of 2,500 people that have given various times anything between $25 and $25,000. And so he is right now engaging in a major donor campaign, but he's going to drop that for a while and do a crowdfunding campaign for the smaller donors. So there's a lot of strategy in fundraising, but a lot of fundraising is about numbers. And documentary filmmakers really have to learn the grant writing, proposal writing world, because that's a lot of where funds come from. But even then, documentary filmmakers have to learn how to land those individual donors, because it's still where the most money is, you know. But for example, today I have a client who just won a $100,000 grant for her film, but the rest of the money for the film is all going to come from individuals, and she can leverage the grant to get the individual donors. Dedi, do you have a question you wanted to ask?
No, I
Yeah.
was just scratching my head. Sorry.
No, Dedi.
Oh,
There's
I'm
Dedi
sorry.
and Dedi.
I thought you said Getty.
No, yeah, it's Dee Dee.
Dee, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you so much for doing this. I was wondering, where you mentioned that for the micro budget, no name film, you could expect maybe 50 to 100, 120K. And so, you know, obviously you wouldn't want to spend more than that in your budget. And I was wondering, like, where exactly.
Dedi, I should say that's not obvious to some people. But thank you for noticing that. That's a smart idea, yes.
Well, that's how I took what you were saying.
Yes.
But like, don't spend 500,000, spend 100,000 maybe. But my question was, like, what specific avenues of distribution can you expect to get that kind of money from? Like, if you've got a no-name film, more likely than not, you don't necessarily have a producer with major connections to, you know, the streamers. So where exactly is that 50 to 120K coming from on the distribution end? Like, what are you promising your investors in terms of, here's where the payment's going to come from on the distribution end?
It is going to come from the streamers, but you don't have access to the streamers, but the distribution companies have access to the streamers. So you're going to need a distribution company to take the film to those places. And a distribution company will be interested in your film if it's a genre that sells.
So, hey, Joanne, this is Danielle. This might help Dedi's question a little bit. So just a teeny experience I had last year, was a producer and one of the leads in a feature film. And we did all the fundraising ourselves. We pretty much were on crowdfunding. And there might have been a little pent up demand with the young writers, family and friends, which kicked it off. However, as the campaign was going through, you know, aging, and we were starting to, you know, our goal was like 14,000 initially, and we knew we needed more, but we were going to do another round later. As we were starting to really get a lot of donations, I think that some, I guess, larger investors for a low budget film are watching those sites, because we ended up having multiple people. One woman had a production company and she just wanted to get on the map. She just wanted her production company attached to a film, gave us $2,500. So we made her a producer. And then we actually had an investor. And this guy he was kind of new to investing, but he had the money, and he invested probably last year or during COVID, he invested in probably 30 different films to varying levels. and he basically funded our gap. And
where did they see the film? Did you say, Danielle?
it wasn't made yet at that
Right.
time.
But
Um,
how did they find it? How did they find out?
Which
through
site?
crowdfunding site.
Through the crowdfund. Okay, yes.
Yeah. And so we had a meeting, consulted with a lawyer afterward, had a little back and forth to make sure that because the investor was also a lawyer. And now we're like one step away from signing a distribution deal. And so, you know, I mean, it still kind of surprises me, and I don't know how much money we're going to make, but we only spent in total, we shot in 6K. Footage looks gorgeous. We spent $26,000.
What's the genre of the film?
Thriller.
Thriller. Yeah. You know,
So
it's a
crowdfunding can work.
it's a business model that works. That's all I can say. And given what I love about the business model is that you raise the money, so you don't owe anybody any money, and then anything that comes in is basically profit, right? So although you have an investor, so yeah.
Yeah, we do. We did set it up so that myself and the writer director create a majority. The investor does not have a majority. But yeah, he's going to get paid back first.
Yeah. It's a very good business model. Alice, what's your question?
Oh, mine's kind of more of a comment going off Danielle. We're actually in the middle of doing that very thing. We have a thriller where we're putting up a number of funds in the beginning, and we actually have it someone has donated their entire house and their property to us to film our thriller. So we're able to do a one location, 3 cast thriller that we're looking to film under 20K. And so we're putting up, part of that, and then crowdfunding for the rest, and then have our stretch fund, our stretch goals that would allow us to, pay cast and crew higher, and then make a better distribution deal, throughout post. But that's exactly what we're doing, is kind of using a step up approach. And then of course doing pre-launch work and, behind the scenes, like we've already filmed, like a little pre-launch video of, the people being kidnapped in their cellar. And so we're using that to, promote, promote it while we pre-launch and do all the rest of the stuff in pre-production. So it is a really good way to approach it if you have time to do that, is to do it in kind of spurts, in phases where you can play donations and contributions off of each other. So
good luck with the film. But the fact that it is a thriller, as long as the production values are good enough, you will get distribution for the film. Guess how long a distributor wants to see of your film once they know it's a thriller? Before deciding.
30 seconds.
I'd say about 4 seconds. About 4 or 5 seconds. They just want to make sure that the production values are there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the good news is that we are using the exact same team that we just filmed with. So we don't have surprises. So we're able to have a bit of less risk overall again, which makes things cost less. So
excellent.
Yeah, the project we had, we put together like a 30-second trailer, and they were like, yep, they loved it.
That's right. And I think mostly filmmakers just don't understand that. But the way the industry thinks is, can I sell that? That's it. Can I sell that? If it's a thriller, if it's a horror, if it's a family film, if it's a faith-based film, they know they can sell it. If it's a comedy, if it's a drama, you know, how do we find the audience for that? But for those genres, definitely they can sell it. So just to finish the 7 steps, the last 2 are pretty obvious. The first S stands for start fundraising. And the reason I have this one is because a lot of filmmakers get stuck at this point where they want to raise money for the film, they decide on a strategy, they decide which kinds of fundraising they're going to do, they prepare, and then they don't actually do it. Because the thing about fundraising is that, as I said, it's not rocket science. It's a lot of rinse and repeat, numbers. But there's something scary about it. There's something that people are afraid of doing it. They're afraid of asking for money. And that's a lot of times where people get stuck. And then they'll kind of revert to, oh, well, you know, then I don't need to raise any money. I'll just save my money. Oh, I don't need to make a feature. I'll just go back and make another short. You know, that kind of thing. Like, try and get around it. But I would say that I call it building your fundraising muscle, which is why I like to start my beginners off at $11,000 or $12,000, because you start at one number and then you can make it to 20, 25, you know, you can make it to 50. And it's just great skills to have. And anybody who wants to make films for a long time is always going to have to be raising money. I remember, what's his name? I'm not going to remember his name. Anyway, one of the duo that made an Inconvenient sequel, which was like a huge budget documentary. And I was at this panel that he was on, and they were talking about raising money. And he had also just mentioned that when they made Audrey and Daisy, which you can see on Netflix, I think it's still on Netflix, was a $1.2 million movie, but I'm sure an Inconvenient sequel was, you know, a lot bigger budget than that. And he said, oh, John Schenk, that's his name, John Schenk. And he said, there were like 100 people in the room, and he said, oh, have people in the room done crowdfunding? And a bunch of people raised their hands, and he went around the room. He said, well, how much did you raise? You know, 7,000, 10,000, 15,000, 3,000. And he was like, I have to get on that. I thought that was great, because real filmmakers know wherever they can get the money, they're going to get the money, you know. So maybe Netflix isn't going to give them $1.2 million next time. John Schenk will be crowdfunding. And it's great to, as a way to, who was it who said it? But as a way to identify potential major donors or identify investors. It's a great way of doing that. But as soon as you're talking about your film and you're sharing about your film, you're telling everybody about your film, then that's also how you're going to start bringing in donors and investors to your film. And then the final S stands for start production. And the only reason I have that there is because I just want to say that production doesn't begin until all these other things are in place, until the business piece is in place, until it makes sense, until you're not just throwing money at the wall and hoping something will stick, that you have a plan to get the money back from your film. And I'm just so about this because filmmakers are always so passionate about their stories, and I'm just passionate about them getting paid. Because filmmakers are the most creative people out there, and they're the most passionate, and they work the hardest. So I figure they should get paid. You know? And so
well, I agree with that.
When I asked at the beginning, you know, what is your version of success? I would like to leave you with this. Your version of success is getting paid for your hard work and your creativity And that's what I would like to see for you all. And that's my definition of success for all of you. So that's my 7-step process and my methodology. And if you have any questions, now is the time. If you would like to talk to me, I'm going to put my calendar in the chat. I would love to talk to you if you would be interested in working with me. I basically try to download as much as I can of my knowledge about fundraising. Thank you, Alice. My fundraising skills. I've raised millions of dollars, and I've raised very small amounts of money, and it doesn't really matter to me which, because if it's a small amount of money, the next time it'll be bigger. So if you would be interested in talking to me about working together, please, there's my calendar. And if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, everyone can, unmute and ask any additional questions that you have of Joanne. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been really helpful.
Great. Thank you, Danielle.
So no questions. Everybody knows everything they need to know.
Everybody knows how to go make money from their film.
I can do that now.
Hi, this is Deborah.
Deborah?
This was fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Joanne. And I did have a question in regards to documentaries, especially when it comes to distribution and trailers, especially sizzle reels. I mean, is that something that they really look at, or is that something just for producers? My documentary is such that I might go to one particular group of subjects and say one thing, and I might go to another group of subjects and say another thing. So, because it's not something, I can tell you what it is. It's about women in law enforcement. So on one side, I'm going
Great topic.
Yeah, I'm going to the NYPD. Another thing, I'm going to the DOJ, or I'm going to, speak to women in, the unsung heroes. And so my question is, does a sizzle reel really help distribution? Does it help producers? Who is it really geared towards?
It's so funny. I'm part of a really amazing documentary organization called Brown Girls Doc Mafia. And I posted in there one day, I said, what do you call that thing that's like some scenes from your movie that you use to raise money? Because I don't like calling it a trailer, because I think a trailer is what you make when the film is finished and it's used to sell the film. So what's the name of that other thing? This thread went on and on and on for like days, and all these people, it's a sizzle reel, it's a selects, it's a this, it's a that, and after about 40 different suggestions, I said, thanks everybody. Now I really know what that thing is called. So Deborah, I'm hearing a lot of questions that are all kind of in there. So a distributor is interested in a trailer that is designed to sell the film. A sizzle reel I think of as possibly a thing that you use to raise money. So what is it that you actually want to achieve with this thing, this video, little piece of video?
Right. So I think that on one side, I want to be able to go to EPs and say, oh, I've got this great, documentary. And I know in some sense, documentaries don't always make a lot of money. That's,
No, wait. If we go back to you,
right.
Understand the business model. So my version of business, one time I met a guy who was really rich. I said, how'd you become rich? He said, well, you make a widget for 50 cents and you sell it for $1.
Right.
So if we can make a film for 50 cents and sell it for $1, I think that's good business.
Right.
Right? So I don't buy this thing, oh, documentaries don't make money. We're living in the golden age of documentaries right now. As soon as you say the topic, women in law enforcement, I'm like, that sounds great. That's a movie that needs to be made. Right?
Right.
There's the audience of people who are already in law enforcement. There's the people who are interested in law enforcement, and then there's women in general.
Right.
There's solid big audiences for that.
Right. But the other thing is we don't want to just preach to the choir. I mean, we also want to get those men who will, support and advocate for women as well. So that's another type of audience, to try and get.
That's
So
a stretch audience.
that's a tough audience. I got that.
Target, there are target, like on the nose audiences, and then there are stretch audiences.
Right.
But anyway, but so what you actually are meaning is you want to raise money and you're looking for EPs to do it.
Right.
So I would use the term investors.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're using your selects to be able to attract them. But I would say
Right.
that is simply to set up a meeting. That's to have the next meeting.
Right. And we
Any
have
of
a
your
fiscal
materials-
sponsor.
Any of your materials are
Mhm.
designed to get you to the next meeting as you build a relationship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to talk to you at some point. So
Awesome.
absolutely.
Oops.
Thanks so much, Joanne.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
As far as distribution is concerned, because I'm new to that side of the spectrum, I've been in films behind the scenes and working behind the scenes and helping people produce their films, but I've never really been on the distribution. And now I'm getting filmmakers are coming to me and saying, "Hey, I have a feature film, and do you have any connections with distributors?" How do we get how do you shift a film to a certain distributor, and how do you choose that? Where how would you talk to Lionsgate or Netflix? Where would you start to shift the attention to which distributor for which films?
So what I would say is, so these films that you're talking about are finished, right?
Yeah, there's a few that are finished. There's one that's going to be in the making. It's a thriller drama.
Distributors are only interested in finished films.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then you have to think about what level is the distributor that you're talking about and what
Mhm.
level is the film. Do these films have names in them?
There's a couple films that are going to be having names in them. Yes.
But are they finished?
They're not finished yet.
Okay. So don't talk to distributors unless the film is finished.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But I'm just trying to narrow down to a specific film. So think about one of the finished films that somebody has come to you with. Does it have names in it?
Yes. Well, there's one that has well.
So,
one of them.
okay, let's get this clear. Let's get this clear. I mentioned George Clooney before. So does it have a George Clooney type?
Well, they're going to. Well, let's just say this one is going to be finished, and it's
I'm
going.
talking about a finished
name.
film. Don't
Yeah.
talk about a non-finished. Let's stick with the finished films.
Okay.
The finished films, do they have names in them?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a level like a George Clooney, or is it a smaller level name?
Smaller level name.
Okay. So depending on where that name is in the hierarchy, a Lionsgate or a Netflix is going to be interested or not interested. But there are smaller distributors.
Okay, because the older they get, as then we're talking about Lionsgate, Netflix. If they're still,
not older. No, not older. Bigger.
Well,
Bigger.
bigger names that have been out of season. Let's just say that.
No. It's just to do with how much are they worth.
Okay.
How much are they worth? And
okay.
So the bigger the name, the bigger distributor you can land.
Okay, great.
Right? So a Lionsgate or a Netflix is going to be interested if you have relatively big names.
Okay. And
but so is every other distributor going to be interested, right? If you have relatively big names.
And I mean, I don't have people that I know that have connections to those distributors. I would not be able to, I mean, I don't have the connections per se to talk directly to them. But I know people that know them. And I'm trying to, I need to know how to approach them with the
You have
pitch.
a finished film with names, they will be interested.
Okay, perfect.
And so if you just think of it like the big distributors, I don't know who the biggest one is at the top, right?
Uh-huh.
Then there's a pyramid, or down to the smallest distributors at the bottom. So
Okay.
as it comes down, you get to the smaller distributors. But the smaller distributor, if you take a film to a small distributor
Mm-hmm.
and have names, and that distributor will get it to a higher distributor.
Okay.
But it's a very closed world. So
Yes.
distributors like to talk to distributors. They don't like to talk to filmmakers.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted.
But the industry is very, very, very simple. Can I sell it?
Yes.
Right? Can I sell it? Is it a comedy? If it's a comedy, who are the names? Because as soon as you say it's a comedy, anybody in the industry is going to go, ooh, no.
Yes, right. Okay.
If it's a comedy and it has names, oh, what are the names? Where are the names in the hierarchy? Right? It's just simple. It's like math.
Okay.
And that's really what it is. It's math.
Now, I'm speaking for a friend because
Let's just see if anybody else has a question.
Okay.
Nilda. Richard, I knew you had a question. I almost called on you earlier. I was so sure you had a question.
Oh, that is. Though, thanks for not applying pressure to me, Miss Butcher. Let me start off by saying you are an angel. So thank you.
I've never been called an angel.
You were giving. Was that? Oh. Well, hey, good.
Well, we don't know her very well.
I once was told that when I gave a talk, it was like being hit around the head by a 2x4. I was told that.
No, this has been educational. Well, I mean, the basic definition of an angel is a messenger, right? Okay. So I've really gotten so much from you, so I really do appreciate it. So I think my producing partner is on here. His name is JP, but he may be in and out. I'm not sure.
He was on before, yeah.
Okay, so just real quick, he and I are working on our first feature, and we're looking to shoot it in October. And I'm kind of trying to prepare for anything that can happen once we're done. Yeah. And I don't want to go into self-distribution, but I want to make sure I'm kind of making certain steps. And I may be getting into some of the like minutia of it right now, but and I have two. It's a horror.
Yes.
Yeah. But I kind of have two questions for you. One of them isn't really related to the other one. The first question that I have for you is just what are your thoughts on releasing like images or potential posters before you actually secure distribution?
Great. That's an excellent thing to do. It's just promoting your film and getting people excited about it coming out, right?
Okay, cool. So you don't think that'll shoot yourself in the foot if a distributor says, I don't like these images or anything like that?
Well, that's very, very possible because distributors are professionals at marketing and filmmakers are not. So it tends to be that filmmakers do not make the best posters and the best trailers.
Okay.
Did I say that nicely?
Yes, that was good. It was direct. That's what I needed. Yeah.
Right? So filmmakers are not marketing professionals, which doesn't mean to say that distributors can't mess it up, because they can. But so depending on, again, where the distributor is in the hierarchy, the distributor I work with makes fabulous trailers, but a lot of distributors don't. Small distributors don't make trailers. As you get higher up, the distributor is always the one who makes the trailer. But that doesn't mean to say that you can't put out your own images and your own stuff before. In fact, one of my clients got distribution for their film based on a trailer that they made. It was not the trailer they first made. It was the trailer they made after I gave them feedback. But they got distribution just from the trailer.
Got you. See, the angel. All right. So this is my second question. I'll pass the floor around. What do you think is the sweet spot for a trailer length?
You know, that's funny. I would normally say I don't know, but just recently, the distributor made a trailer that was 2.5 minutes long. And I was like, wow, that trailer needed to be 2 minutes.
Right.
It was so clear to me that it needed to be 2 minutes.
Right.
And it was so clear to me where it should have finished and where it went on. And I said to my client, I was like, oh, that trailer needed to finish at 2 minutes. And he said, oh, I already approved it. I said, well, why did you do that? You know, and he said, well, I was afraid that they would, you know, if I asked them to change it, they would take a long time. And I was like, but it was still good. It was still good.
Right.
But so I don't really know if there's an actual length, but what was interesting is for this particular filmmaker, for him, the bomb is A24. And before I spoke to him and before I knew he had approved the trailer already, I was like, that trailer's too long. And I went on A24 and I looked at one of their trailers. I think it was for Macbeth. And it was something like 1 minute and 58 seconds. And I was like, yeah, I was right.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know if there's an answer to that, really.
Okay. Okay.
You have a sense of how long a trailer should be?
Kind of what I've been told, between 1 minute and 2 minutes.
Yeah. But what a trailer should not do is to tell the story of the film. It should sell the film.
Right.
That's why filmmakers tend to, you know, in fact, that client who sold the film based on the trailer he made, first, you know, he sent me he said, oh, I made a trailer. And he was trying to tell the story. And I was like, no. This is a horror film. No, it was a thriller. And I said, so basically your trailer needs to say, this is a scary movie. This is a scary movie. This is a scary movie. Right? It's not, the job of the trailer is not to tell the story of the film. So he was like, oh, and he went back and he made this other trailer, and that was the one that got the distribution.
Okay. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So do you recommend sales agents to shop your film for you, or can you get straight to a distributor?
I work with a distributor and who is also an international sales agent. So some distributors do both. And some are just sales agents. You know, I happen to work with somebody who does, you know, the whole thing. But usually the term sales agent means the international stuff. But, and you can also work with a producer's rep who would take the film to distributors.
I have a question, Joanne, may I?
Who is that?
Nilda.
Oh, Nilda. Okay.
Sorry about that. I have a film that we created. It has John Amos in it, and he is from Good Times. And it's still in theaters, but I was wondering if it was running in Nigeria, and they're trying to distribute here in the United States. How long would it take for it to get to a Netflix if it has already gone through the theaters in Africa?
I don't think that a sale in Nigeria would have any impact. That is a really interesting case. I love that because Africa is a very interesting market that most American distributors wouldn't have the first idea about.
Okay.
So was the movie made in Nigeria?
It was made here in the United States, and we produced it here. It's Christmas in Miami.
Why did it show theatrically in Nigeria?
Because it started in Nigeria and we finished it here in Miami. It was based out of Miami.
Yeah. No, you can definitely sell the US but that's a very, very interesting case. So you have, you know, well-known names. You
Yes.
have theatrical in another country, but you probably want to have a distributor and an international sales agent. And then you'll just have to have in the contract that they can't sell Nigeria, although they probably could sell streaming in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Because they've already had theatrical. But that's a very interesting case.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna have that be the last question. If that's okay. Is that okay,
Yes,
Danielle?
absolutely. This has been an hour and a half. Woo. Thank you,
I could talk
Joanne.
all day about
I
movies.
know, and I think this group can too. I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. It looks like we got a lot of good value out of this. Thank you, Joanne, so much. You've got the link in the chat if you wanted to reach out to Joanne and schedule an appointment and talk with her privately for coaching. And on behalf of the Organization of Independent Filmmakers, thank you guys. Have a great night.